Hey guys, welcome to another episode. On today's episode, we're gonna start building our transmission mount. So, let's get going. So now that I have the E46 M3 drive shaft in, I have to make sure the guibo fits. So this is the 335i guibo and this is the E46 M3 guibo. If you compare it, it's a little bit small. I think it's 93, and whereas the 335 is a 110, I think. So anyhow, to change that, I have to change the output shaft flange on the transmission. So here it is. I used a 3-prong puller to pull it out. It comes with a 41mm nut. Unfortunately, when I put the E46 M3 output flange, so I don't have enough space to put a 41mm socket in. Thanks to Garageaholic, he figured out a E46 rear axle nut would fit perfectly with the shaft. I believe a 32mm 12-point nut, and I'd like to thank Garageaholic again for figuring that out. So yeah, I'm gonna make the E46 M3 output shaft flange with a E46 rear axle nut, and then I'm gonna use this guibo to mark it up. This one is trash, but I'm gonna use it to mark up the distance. So yeah, let's keep going. So to start off, I got my drive shaft in. It's connected to the differential as usual. It is pretty straight all the way up to the center bearing support. So that is not our problem. Problem starts after the center support bearing. So let me turn around. Okay. So this is our center support bearing and so forth, transmission and everything else. Don't worry about my cardboard mount. It's not gonna be permanent, hopefully. I don't know, maybe it'll support the weight, so we'll see. Anyhow, so I don't know if you can see from here onwards, the drive shaft is pretty straight, and I tried to get as straight as possible. I think it is straight. I don't know, we'll see. So basically I'm using a E46 M3 differential with a E46 M3 drive shaft. So I did not want to customize the drive shaft. I figured I'll move the engine and transmission around and make some custom mounts. That seems to be the ideal way to go at that point. Alright, how did I get the drive shaft centered? Let me show you guys. Oh my goodness. Are we positioned? Okay, now we seem to be in the proper position. Okay, so this is the output shaft flange from a E46 M3 on the regular 335i manual transmission, and I'm using the guibo from a E46 M3 as well. So to center the drive shaft, what I did was align the transmission and engine as much as I could, then move it around to the point where, I don't know if you can see it, let's zoom in. the space between the drive shaft flange and the guibo is how do you say it? It's not too like pushing the guibo, at the same time it's not, you know, there's not too much of a gap in between. Here's my transmission and the oil pan. I have the front subframe down, so it's easier for me to work around. But what I want to show you guys is how level the you know, how balanced it is. So this is my semi-accurate way of. So I'm using the edge of both transmission mounts. From this edge to this edge of the mount, it seems pretty straight, leveled. There might be a hair difference, but you know, it's as straight as I could get. And then if you look at well, moving out of the car is not the ideal at this point. Okay. If you look at the oil pan, you know, it's really not easy to do this. There's no easy way of doing this. Okay, let's zoom in. Let me get my level. And if you can see it, it's pretty centered, the oil pan. And now let's go from the outside so I can show you guys what else. So like I said, it's easier to show you from the outside rather than the end underneath the car. So the engine sits pretty much centered to the car. So I centered the engine between both rails. The crankshaft pulley is centered to both of the rail ends, and then you got plenty of space on the driver's side or where the transmission tunnel is. There's plenty of space on top of the transmission tunnel, and on this side it looks like, let's see, focus, it looks like the wastegate, you know, the actuator or the vacuum pump thing is hitting the rail, but it is not. It's because my heat shield is bended. When I try to put the you know, engine in, after so many tries it started bending. There's about ½ inch of space right there, so that should be fine, I'm guessing. Let me show you how level the engine sits. Oops, sorry. Engine is pretty centered. There might be a hair towards the other side, but it's really difficult for me to get it going to proper center position. But it is as center as it could get at this point. So yeah, that's about it. It took me hours of wiggling around and minute adjustment to get the engine to this position. And yeah, let's start building the transmission mount. So this is the transmission mount I built. It's not the prettiest thing in the world. The welds are ugly. but they seems solid. It doesn't bend or flex, anything like that. I use braces on the sides and the back, so you know I couldn't use anything in the front because of the mount sits right here, and I had to be careful where I put the braces because I need to put a bolt in too. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw the specifications or the measurements of this brace right now, maybe. You know, I'll upload a file or something so you guys can take a look at it. You could probably get away with building with the same specs if you're gonna go for like a, you know, same kind of a swap, but you might have to do some slight modification depending how your, you know, engine sets and the transmission you're gonna use. But either way, I'll throw the specifications, maybe it can help you out as well. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start primering on this and start putting some paint over so it won't rust, and then we'll start putting it inside the car, I mean under the car. Alright guys, the trans mount is in. It's sitting really nice. So if you check, the mounts are sitting flat, they're not warped or anything. And the other point is the gap between the guibo and the drive shaft. So it's pretty symmetric all around. There's no like deviation or spacing in between, so that's pretty good. I spent hours and hours getting to align this properly without, you know, messing around, and getting the engine and transmission flat was not easy. Yep, that's the new transmission mount. I painted it blue because I got leftover paint, so I just wanted to use it. I didn't want to just use bare metal, so I did some primer and then just do leftover paint from the calipers. It should fine. It should hold up. Alright guys, so I'm done building the transmission mount. It came out pretty well and I'm happy with how it looks and the strength. Before you start talking about my welding skills, I'm not a welder. I've done welding before my life. This was the first time. So I'm pretty happy with it for the first time. It came out decent. It's not the prettiest weld, but it's I think strength wise it'll hold. And yeah, and the other thing is I may not have too much footage because I didn't want to just, you know, video me trying to figure out the measurements and things like that, because it may not be as interesting as building something. It would have been a lot more boring. But first of all, I would like to thank Garageholic. So I kind of got the idea from him how to build a transmission mount because I read about it and then I saw his. So hats off to him. He's done a E36 N54 build as well. So I'll throw in the link so you can take a look. And going back, instead of starting from the front where build setting up the engine, transmission, and then going forward, I started from the rear. So I have a M3 rear subframe with LSD, M3 drive shaft, and then at that point I started working towards the transmission mount, and then next step hopefully will be building engine mounts. But to get the transmission mount, let's say your hand is basically, my glove is the transmission and my arm is the engine. If I move the engine, the transmission moves the angle with it because it's, you know, connected together. And then I have the drive shaft coming in, and the drive shaft stays in place because of the centrifugal bearing, and it has a little bit of flex, but not too much. So this is the guibo connected to the transmission mount, transmission, and this is the drive shaft. If I move the engine up or down, the guibo is going to move as well. and I had to make sure the drive shaft sits perfectly flat with the guibo, so the guibo is not gonna, you know, wear sooner than it's supposed to. So if I move a slight engine slide to the right, the transmission moves, and so is the guibo. So it's a big difference. And if I move the engine a little bit up, it's the same thing. You can see it's facing that bottom and top. So it took me a lot of measurements and, you know, setting up the engine and things like that to get it properly where the guibo sits with the drive shaft and there's no spacing whenever the drive shaft rotates with the guibo. So that's what happened in the background, and it took me a long time to get that, you know, set, because it's not like I have a workshop where I can, you know, hoist the whole thing up and set it up. So I'm doing it on jack stand, so it's not the easiest thing to set everything in balance with one jack as well. I hope this, you know, so I made a little schematic. I probably already threw it in here. I'll throw it again. You could follow the specification of it and build one, or get it built from someone else. It'll give you at least a baseline. The only thing you probably have to change would be the bolting points depending where it goes. It might be slightly different because we're not doing the manufacturing process, so it's each one may have slight differences. So, but anyhow, at least now you have a baseline to start if you're thinking about doing the swap, and refer to that, and I hope it helps out, you know, Phil at least. That's about it. As usual, if you haven't subscribed, please hit subscribe. It helps me out, you know, hit the bell, like, comment, the usual stuff. Other than that, we're done for the day. So I'll see you guys next time. Keep breaking bolts.